Hey, trucked up guys and gals, it's happened. This is not good news. Devastating, actually. The one thing I've been grumbling about since launching this channel has now reared its ugly head yet again, and now threatens to take down one of Canada's newest and most innovative manufacturers right here in my backyard. As I'll explain, this is the reason why we have no EREVs on the road in Canada and United States, and why complexity, power, and money determines who can do what, while simplicity and elegant design is snuffed out. And it further undermines our own Canadian government's policy to advance widespread EV adoption. Edison Motors just found out how monumentally thick this quagmire of a multitude of punitive regulations, all requiring multiple ministries of government to oversee, might destroy their plans for their EV logging trucks and more. It's a startup's worst nightmare, especially when the roadblock they face is so ridiculous and shocking you won't believe it when you hear it. Edison Motors needs more voices to stand with them, and we're going to add ours today. So pull out your bullhorn and your soapbox, and let's get totally trucked up. Next week, I'll be putting out an exclusive Patreon and YouTube members-only video offering a detailed look into the ins and outs of what I've proposed for a light-duty truck solution to this problem. So if you'd like to check that out while supporting this tiny channel, please consider becoming a full paid member, and you'll also receive advanced releases of all my videos. The links are below. Many people who have come to my channel have assumed that I'm against EREVs. Since coming out with my first video regarding them about a year and a half ago, entitled Gas Guzzling EV, where I cast some serious shade on the recently announced Ram Charger at the time. But in fact, EREVs and true series hybrids are something I have been incredibly excited about, but in a very different way. In fact, my belief in them is very much what Edison Motors is doing. And I can't tell you how thrilled I was when they moved from Merritt, BC to my backyard only a few hours away, broke ground, and started the journey of building that dream into a reality. One of my earlier videos, when my channel was even tinier than it is now, I discussed how I thought extending an EV truck's range should be a DIY right to install by all EV truck owners, and how massive level of adoption would follow if this was actually done. It's kind of funny that my top performing video approaching 50,000 views on this channel just so happens to also be an EREV video featuring Scout Terra versus Ram Charger. I'll provide links to all these videos below. But the problem to truly achieving this incredibly simple and elegant solution and add range whenever one wishes is completely stymied, killed 6 feet under, pushing up daisies long before ever making it into your driveway because of these two things. Number one, legacy auto. Including the massive semi-truck producers, they don't want you or any smaller manufacturer to have that kind of simplification and access, because that would mean you, the consumer, could decide how to power your EV for extended range, rather than being forced into buying their already installed, highly complex and incredibly expensive solution, deliberately putting a monopolistic stranglehold on the EREVs by them being the only ones able to sell more V6, V8s, and diesels by circumventing issue number two. What's issue number two? Layers upon layers of regulations that once put into focus are the most archaic, ridiculous, and crippling rules that actually curtail EV adoption at an epically stupid level. The worst part is that to get an exemption on these rules has our Canadian government going to the legacy players in a foreign country and allowing them to dictate Canadian policy and the exemption approval process, which they always reject, of course. Now, at this point, many of you are probably a bit confused. Rightly so. Not only am I a dipshit, and I can ramble a little, but we need to get into the why a little bit more first. So let me get into how these two things threaten to halt Edison Motors from ever moving forward. We have two types of motors, according to definitions fabricated by the EPA and adopted by Canada. On the surface, one would think they're kind of the same. We have generators and we have gas and or diesel vehicle engines. I know, they are the same, but not according to a horde of people who love to say, yes, we understand, but the policy says they're not. Like some kind of bureaucratic parrot. Every time you get to this point, you're going to hear the same response. No explanation. It's just simply, you can't do that. You see, their classification of these two things couldn't be more different. So first, generators. The misconception right out the gate by most people, including me for a while, is that generators produce far more emissions and don't have to meet the same rigor as vehicle engines. But that's not always the case. In fact, most of the times, it's not the case. In fact, generators operate typically at a steady RPM, or they'll push the load will push them up to a particular RPM because it's not powering locomotion directly, making them incredibly efficient in their use of the fuel. This is why commercial vehicles use them all the time. It's to reduce fuel consumption. Its sole purpose is to generate electrical power. And to put this into context, vehicles are passing you every single day in huge numbers that are running generators while driving down the highway, often referred to as gensets. You'll find these things powering refrigerated trucks, mobile command centers, mobile medical vehicles, catering and hospitality units, broadcast and media vehicles, welding trucks, and so many more. But for some, really ridiculous reason, even with most of these vehicles being on the road with the gensets running, they're not rated as on-highway engines. As I demonstrated in my extended range off-road adventure, charging my Lightning far beyond its range with an inverter generator, you can see that video right here, I have to be stopped to power my truck. The moment it is used to power batteries for locomotion, it immediately becomes illegal. Environment and Climate Change Canada states that a designated off-highway emissions Tier 4 final generator cannot be mounted to a truck to power its batteries. But if you install a crane and you lift it off the truck and you place it on the ground and then charge the batteries, that's perfectly fine. As if somehow the atmosphere, the energy, you go into a vortex alternate reality where the atmosphere miraculously changes and affects the emissions based on where it's mounted. The one mounted to the truck is damaging the planet. The one mounted on the ground is helping the environment because it is smaller and more efficient than a standard Tier 4 on-highway engine. I know, this is the stupidest thing one could imagine, but it's law. And the only way to have an engine act as a generator is if it is designated an on-highway engine. But an on-highway engine doesn't work that way. I'll put a link to Chase Barber from Edison Motors explaining this directly. I'm not going to Skype his video and put him in here. I'll probably get copyright struck. But here's what generally he'll say. If you want to check it out, definitely do and get it right from the horse's mouth. But it goes something like this. The engine in the truck, a gas or diesel engine, accelerates when you push on the gas by you injecting more fuel into it. You're basically juicing the engine up with more fuel and it is revving up. You're powering the engine. Whereas in a generator, you're not pushing fuel into it. It's basically detecting the load and then responding by generating the fuel. There's no gas pedal. There's no manual triggering or going through the gears or revving up and down that you'll do with a regular engine. It's constant. It gets an indicator that it's receiving a load. It turns on and generates electricity that feeds the batteries. They're nothing alike in how they actually operate. But the crazy thing is, it gets worse when you start to look at remote charging networks all over the place that have no access to a grid, are powered by generators. charging stations for EVs, including Tesla, ChargePoint, BC Hydro, Flow, and Circuit Electrique in Quebec. Right here in Canada. If you Americans are laughing right now, well, these ridiculous laws came from your country, and Canada had to adopt them to be compliant with your country so as not to face penalties or trade barriers. This on-highway, off-highway certification difference creates such a massive can of worms that it will make your head explode. To be certified for on-highway use, an engine is tested at varying RPMs and is thus powered by an accelerator pedal. As we just discussed, it gets certified by demonstrating it meets emissions and required performance outcomes over the spectrum of the RPMs. But a generator doesn't run like this. It runs incredibly more efficiently and bears no load beyond its steady state. It's making electricity. That's its only job. So to get an engine that is both a generator engine that meets these on-highway requirements, it must undergo a multi-million-dollar investment in getting that motor to certification for such an application. And because of this, there is no on-highway generator engine certified for North America for a series hybrid in existence. There's simply none you can go out and buy. No one is making one, which means Environment and Climate Change Canada, along with the EPA in the United States, expects Edison Motors to reinvent the freaking wheel for hundreds of millions of dollars and make their own for a few hundred trucks produced in its first year. See the problem? They can't take an on-highway engine and modify it to get to steady state because then you've messed with it. And the moment you mess with it, it no longer is certified. So I bet you're asking then, how the heck is it that Ram and Scout plan to produce EREVs in North America? Well, the answer is very simple. Buckets and buckets of freaking money. If our regulations here in Canada were those of Europe, rather than buried in a quagmire of regulations that are designed to deliberately protect the status quo, Edison Motors EREVs would already be on the road. I would have an auxiliary port in my EV truck, and a lot more pickup truck buyers and commercial trucks alike would be moving rapidly toward electrification. Instead, Edison Motors is being told that although their engine/generator meets all its emissions requirements, is highly efficient, is moving in the exact direction the Government of Canada wants it to meet the Canadian government's own EV adoption mandate, it is being outright denied the right to bring back semi-truck manufacturing to Canada and introduce one of the most innovative, efficient, and most needed extended range EV trucks to the logging industry and beyond. The applications for this are widespread and game-changing, and it all can be done relatively simply and inexpensively if these twits would just get the hell out of the way. But they're not even in the way because they don't even have the regulations to be in the way. That's the problem. And furthermore, that would threaten the big boys. Edison Motors has presented their case. And even with many levels of government agreeing that what they are attempting to do is exactly what Canada is hoping to advance, these same people are then forced to utter the same horrible, parroting, bureaucratic words that drive the nail into the coffin. Your application is rejected. The rules say no. But the reality is the government doesn't have the rules. They have no idea what they're doing to advance EV adoption and to find solutions to rapidly improve the efficiency of hybrids. While demanding everyone go EV or hybrid by 2035, the rules don't exist to permit that to happen. Basically, no one thought of it. So when a company does think of it, demonstrate it, and offers to remove millions of tons of carbon from the atmosphere over time through this innovation, it is crippled by its own nation's inflexibility to comprehend the technology. The government, after weeks of deliberation with Edison Motors, told them directly, you can't build a series hybrid because we don't have any legislation that allows you to do that right now. I'm not freaking kidding you. Look, your RV likely has a generator in it and is likely a lot less efficient, like by leaps and bounds, by step changes, and produces a lot more emissions than what Edison Motors is looking to install, but it doesn't power the vehicle. So it is legal, whereas a true series hybrid is not, even though the same system is used in locomotives and ships the world over. Air Canada is about to buy a fleet of short-haul electric hybrid airplanes operating on a somewhat similar concept. But where is it needed most? Just imagine for a moment a logging truck burning massive amounts of diesel to pull that huge piece of metal up an FSR, a forestry service road, for dozens, if not hundreds of kilometers, on switchback crazy dangerous roads, draining liter upon liter of fuel to get there. Now picture that same truck using electricity for most of that journey, but supplementing it from an onboard, powerful yet incredibly efficient diesel generator, delivering the shortfall. But the beauty comes when that logging truck is loaded up and drives out. It is now making massive amounts of power and refilling those batteries for the entire journey back using its regen system, and at an exponential rate than a typical hybrid, because it's now loaded with a few tons of logs pushing it down and dramatically increasing electrical generation. Now think of that application in the oil patch, in mining, in industrial applications, road building. The list goes on and on and on. Let's not mince words. These are 100% electric trucks, but when the batteries get low, they're in remote areas with no charging infrastructure. So just like Tesla and BC Hydro, what they do when there's no grids around, it incorporates a generator to recharge. The only difference? Edison's generator is on board. So thanks to our Canadian and US governments, this obvious environmental, social, and industry-leading and job-creating benefit is being systematically and deliberately destroyed. This, put plain and simple, is insanity. Edison Motors is about to start financing rounds for its investors, and think of the pressure upon Chase Barber and his team right now. Imagine the frustration, the exasperation of knowing what you are doing is exactly what the world and Canada needs. And that same system is working to shut you down. So where does trucked up EVs come into this? Well, I kind of don't, other than getting the message out. But you, on the other hand, I hope to attend the fully charged event in Vancouver, and I know Edison Motors will be there. Although right now, I have no truck because of the accident and still waiting for an estimator. I'm hoping somehow I can get there. And I also hope to work to get a petition going, as long as I have Edison Motors' blessing to do so. We'll see how that unfolds. But in the meantime, you have more power than any of us. If we believe in advancing the adoption of EV trucks and moving rapidly towards better efficiency and more affordable options for the working folk of our two nations, we have to step up and speak out. You should have the right to either install or demand from your automaker to offer an auxiliary port for your EV truck to allow you to charge on the road, whether by solar or by inverter generator or mini genset, to create your own inexpensive, highly efficient EREV. Sure, let's have regulations to ensure emission levels are as good, if not better, than the drive engines they replace. But most importantly, a truck manufacturer should have the right to innovate, to create more efficient and environmentally beneficial large truck fleets by demanding the legislation catch up with the innovation. Let's help Edison Motors get over the seemingly insurmountable and unnecessary hurdle. If anyone can, it's the tenacious and dedicated Chase Barber and his amazing team at Edison Motors. Write to your MLA, write to your member of parliament, write to your congressperson, write to your senator, and demand that this gets dealt with. Together we can help advance EV adoption for everyone. As always, thanks for watching.